So it's whiplash time. We're looking at our great and good God and how miraculous it is that we have family and salvation. And now it's like all these little tiny things that really don't matter, but yet they still illustrate how great and good our God is. And tomorrow we want to look at why we thank Him for our food. But you know the drill. What is that? Anyone want to hazard a guess, or maybe you know what that is?
Leaf of some sort.
No?
No.
Thanks for guessing.
Ladybug.
Nope.
It looks like the stuff they put on our windshield when we go through the car wash.
Oh, there you go. No. I saw a hand.
Is it silicone?
No.
Is it a bug of some sort?
You're getting warm.
Is it an insect wing?
It is a scale, a wing scale of a butterfly. And it is, in fact, this little inconsequential butterfly right here. This is a juniper hair streak. And their green color is produced by the structure of this wing scale. You know the pixie dust you get on your fingers when you handle a butterfly? So just to kind of give you an idea of what's going on here, these lines this way, think of them as like the timbers, the beams that hold up the floor here. And these other lines this way, the cross ribs, are the floor joists. Now, butterflies got it mixed up. The support posts are underneath, so you can't see them. But they run their support posts under these cross ribs. And under that, in amongst those, on that particular butterfly wing, on the scales that are producing the green, are these little domains. And you can see there's lines in them, kind of oriented in different directions. These are gyroid 3D photonic crystals. That's what this is right here. And it's 3D, and it has chitin and air in 3 dimensions. So we've got through it, and we've got down through it this way, if I can fit it. I used the wrong one. Let's try down through it and through it this way. Anyway, you get the idea. And then this way. Okay, try it this way. Here we go. So there's holes in three dimensions. And so it's chitin and air, all the same precise distance apart to interact with the light waves to reflect the green that we can see it. And it's a little more complicated than that, of course, because God is just good at this, right? But you can see there is other colors here. There's an iridescence going on. But that's at the scale of 1000x on here. When we look at it, we see green. When a butterfly looks at it, you know, butterflies, they fly around each other, you know, and they're trying to find a mate, and they have better vision than we do. And we think it's beautiful, and they can see these colors and see things that we can't see. And somehow they can do that because God is good. And what I want to look at today is how butterflies produce those beautiful colors. And when I'm talking about how butterflies produce those beautiful colors, I know what you're thinking, guys. When they produce these beautiful colors, It's God that gave him that ability. And he is a master at being good, and he's also a master at, like, giving things other purposes. Things go wrong for us, it turns out for good. Well, these butterfly scales are like a 72 function Swiss Army knife. So you gotta know the story of this. At the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, the master storyteller, Bill Webb, a preacher, long, lanky preacher that can spin the tallest, most unbelievable, believable, tallest tale you've ever heard. Stands there with his hands in his pockets and his bill cap on, and in this amazing story of adventure and crises, in the middle of it, he pulls out of his pocket a 72 function Swiss Army knife and deploys one of the function that puts out the fire in the middle of Main Street or something like that. Saves the day, makes the story. There's all kinds of functions on a butterfly scale, and we want to look at some of them as we go along. So keep your eyes open for what butterfly scales do. And like I said, as we look at these white hats that butterflies do to produce their beautiful colors, it's actually God that gave them that. And he's great and good, and he gave us his word so we can, that it's a guiding light to understand how this happens. And last summer, spring, as you can see there, that was my first butterfly for a butterfly collection. And I picked up some butterfly nets at the yard sale, fortunately. And I warn you, it's contagious. You guys ready for this? Butterflies are smart and hard to catch. I guarantee it. But it is contagious. Now, so grandparents, parents, if you want it to be contagious, get a butterfly net with a long net. See, 8, 16, 24. At least, this is barely long enough, because you'll see. So when you swing at a butterfly, you just go like this once it's in there and you got your butterfly. Or if you see it on the ground and you catch it. I lost many a butterfly because I forgot the most important thing. If you just hold it up like this, they fly up in there. If you don't, they're smart enough to figure out a way to crawl out from underneath there while you think of what you're trying to do to get them. So, but it's contagious, it's great to see. So the other month, we had our, what do you call it? Picnic, Sunday school picnic at church. Well, we went early so I could catch butterflies. So I pulled out of my 72 function Swiss Army van my butterfly net, and I was catching butterflies, and pretty soon the Fisher boys showed up, Chief Dwayne Fisher's boys, and they wanted to catch butterflies. I handed over my butterfly nets and sat there in the chair, and the butterflies were caught. Right there. Look at that. The monarch. Now, I told him beforehand, I went up to the edge of the patch and I was telling him, I need a monarch, you know? And then I saw one right there. Right there. So, I'll warn you, butterflies are hard to catch. And they're smart and fast, so watch this. Butterflies right there, so, oh, catch it. They tighten my muscle like this to swing, they're gone. Time and time and time again. Can you see that? Like, you can swing, and they're gone. If you don't believe it, try it. I tried it 3 times in a row with a butterfly that I already had caught. Sitting there on a flower, and I'm like, I already have one for my collection. This one right here. Now this one. So I'm gonna try. Slip my fingers over its wings. Over its wings. Oh no, wait, I didn't catch it. It went just like that fast, it's gone. See, like 3 times in a row, I slide it over there and it's gone. There you are, fast. I'm just trying to make it challenging so you guys can handle this. And here we are after the total eclipse down in Illinois somewhere, after totality and the wind stopped blowing. And you see why I like to pass it on and why it's nice to be contagious and pass it on to the next generation and the one after that. Can you imagine Grandpa doing that? I do it. Oh, Rowan, are you going to remember what I told you? Oh, his first butterfly, he remembered. See how you do that? That's the way you do it. Only faster than that, because it would have got away from me, I guarantee it. Look at that, see? It's contagious. Now, here's one of the toolkits that God gave butterfly scales. You know, remember those ridges and cross ribs? When the butterfly flaps its wings, those little microstructures create microvortices. And if you take the butterfly scales off a wing, if I remember right, it takes 40 more % wing beats to fly the same speed. Just think of that. Butterfly scales produce those beautiful colors that we see. Butterfly scales let them fly with more efficiency. Here's a cabbage white. If you like cabbage, if you like kraut, you don't like cabbage whites. But I was taking a picture of this one, you know, and like you all experienced yesterday, photographers have this sense of perfection. So it's not like I stick it up there in this butterfly and go and be done with it. I'm like, chow, chow, chow. Butterflies' eyes are very like sensitive or something. The butterfly had it with perfection, right? And so the butterfly is sitting there on that flower and it's like, I'm out of here. It flew up over me and down onto the road and started flying. It was a dirt road, scoop tack, Chief Jesse, and it's dotson along, you know, like butterflies do. Like, I'm gonna help this little butterfly, you can't catch me, you know, all across the road. And I gave it plenty of room, like from here to the back, right? Well, we went down the road 100 yards or so, and butterfly is like, watch this. And it flew up in the air and out into the woods, about halfway up the trees. And from here to the bikes out there by the building in the woods, I could barely see it. And it started flying the other way. So we're flying along, flying along, flying along. After a while, I'm like, guess I'll never catch it. And it came back and sat on that very flower. And I was like, I got suckered. It led me astray and circled back. So I caught it. And it's not that one because I ruined all the butterflies, so I had to start again. That's why the Fisher boys were helping me, because I put them in a butterfly coffin and they molded up. Anyway, the cabbage white is very white. Just look at that, bright matte white. That's not burnt out. That is, you can see the texture of the scales there. That is a structurally assisted pigmentation, and there's very strong scattering of light. So you have an idea what might be in those scales from other scattering the light we're talking about? Tiny little granules that are scattering, reflective and scattering the light everywhere. And we got to start at the beginning here, because we have a guiding light. God is good enough to have spoke into the world with his word and said, in the beginning, there was light. And when he made that light, he made a whole lot more. There's a visible spectrum, But that's only part of the electromagnetic spectrum. We see this, but at higher frequency, we have UV, and butterflies can see that. And there's X-rays and gamma rays, and those are dangerous. We all know that, but there's a use for them. And the other way is infrared. Butterflies can see that. We love infrared. That's why we have that fire going, right? Like, you know, in the wintertime, you can say, feel that infrared across the room. And microwaves and AM and FM radio waves and the super long ones. So, like, God is just amazing how he creates things like that. And that's what's happening with the cabbage white. And that white, scattering all that light. Now, everything has a story. And the worm is eating your cabbage. And it doesn't look appealing to you, but it looks appealing to other things. But of course, God gave it a way to protect itself. So it had all these hairs over it, and these little poison droplets on the hairs, glandular hairs, some of them produce poison. And so not everything's going to eat that, you know, just like we like it. Gross. Like some critters maybe tasted one, or they just take one look at it and they're like, blah. And so the cabbage white caterpillar has a way to protect itself, but it has its enemies. Like here's this parasitic wasp laying eggs, and so that caterpillar will not turn into a cabbage white caterpillar. Have you ever seen a tomato hornworm with all those cocoons sticking out of it? That's what's going to happen to this one right here. It's not going to turn into a cabbage white. Here on the wing in this microscope, you can, I burnt this out, sorry. Anyway, you can see the scales and how they're there on, like shingles. And what amazes me as God had gave instructions to the cabbage white of how it can grow these bright, matte, white scales to interact with light that he created, and also the black ones right beside it. So here is a SEM that someone did of a wing scale, so you can kind of see that structure, what I'm talking about, the ridges here, the cross ribs here, and what you can't see are those support beams, or trabeculae as they're called, and also the lower part of the lamina. Oh, here you can see it, the lamina, the support timbers, the trabeculae, and then the ridges and the cross ribs. So this is the universal structure of butterfly wing scales. And here under the microscope, well, this wasn't this microscope, unfortunately, or it looked better, but here's a black scale right beside a white one. And you can see, I can just so resolve those ridges and cross ribs in the black scale. The white one, you can't see that, but you see something else going on. And that is here, on those cross ribs, there's these little reflective balls that scatter and reflect the light. That's why it's so white, like a waterfall. Behind the scenes, this is what God did, so we see the cabbage whites, and so they find each other. And then the cross ribs and the ridges and the trabeculae and the lamina in the black scales all have melanin, you know, like I used to have in my hair, and it all went to my, you know, spots all over my arm. And so the melanin is there absorbing light, and so it's not reflecting light, and it has more time to do that because of all the structure and the way the light waves are bouncing around in those chitin structures there. And butterflies, like the cabbage white, are signaling to each other with those colors. So those scales are helping them find their mate, and the cabbage white, the one, I think the males might have one, and the females have 2 spots, I forget. Another coloration in the tool kit, in addition to pigments, is scale stacking. This is a red admiral, it's a spring butterfly, and here the blue is a result of scale stacking, and the bright orangish red is also because of scale stacking. And of course, there's more to the story. The red admiral caterpillars love to eat stinging nettle, and so when they're young, they sew up these little leaf shelters, and when they're older and bigger, they sew up a whole leaf. And you know, the butterfly catcher geek goes up there and forgets, you know, one-track minded, and is like, leaf shelter, I'll bet there's a red admiral cat. Ouch! Ouch! You ever got stinging nettles? Burn hazel? Yeah. It's a very effective, like, leaf shelter to hide in. And they're hiding from all kinds of things, including the parasitic wasp, who was there with me looking for stinging nettle hiding red admiral caterpillars. But the one I found did actually turn into a pupa and hatch into a butterfly. So I wanted the perfect picture of a red admiral butterfly. So it hatched out of that chrysalis. So I'm like, put it in the refrigerator for like half an hour. And then I took it out and put it on our flowering bush. I set it on there and it dove into the bush. Like a big bush. I hunted and hunted and hunted to that bush. I could not find that butterfly. So I'm standing back and I'm like, I'm just never gonna find it. There it flew. Very hard to catch. So here's the blue. Scale stacking works kind of like this. Must have deleted the slide, but anyway. Here's the red, like this. The blue, they're saying, is reflected from the underside as a thin lamina here, and the red is, you know, because of all the pigments in there and bouncing around, it makes it brighter, and then like a clear scale on top of a black one reflects the blue, and then you can double it up as well. Here's a slide I was thinking. This is the thin lamina, and then here you can see the scales on top of the black ones. And here you can see it better. Here's the scale stacking in action with the black ones underneath and the clear ones on top to produce the blue. Here's thin film reflection, like the underside of under the scales, and the lamina does something like this, and so the scales would modify. So that rainbow color is kind of like your prism. It's splitting those light waves that God created. Here's another tool that butterflies have, is translucence. It's kind of pretty to see, you know, the sun shining through places on butterfly wings, like here. They use that. They use their patterns for identity, you know, identifying each other, for camouflage, like this, and for surprise, like food, for instance, like this. You know, you're a bird, you come up here to catch this butterfly, and bam, you know, these eyes are looking at you. And see what it takes to make an eye on a butterfly. You have all these different colors, you know, white band, black band, more white, you know, blue, so there's your scale stacking. Then you've got these copper colors in the black, so there's the melanin. There's some other pigments, and then you've got structural color mixed right in with that. And think about the programming it takes to grow something like that. The butterflies didn't cook it up by themselves. Blind chance didn't cook that up by itself. There you can see the eyes and the scale stacking again. And there's a lot of different tools in the butterfly color kit to deploy to make these patterns and the beauty. And then there's structural color. And structural color, like these blue here, is all over the place. Here's the morning cloak, and blue in nature is almost always from structure. Here's the red spotted admiral and the white admiral. These are the same species, they just look different. And I might have to just skip a structural color live demonstration. It takes a while to flip over. I'll just tell you that if you take a butterfly wing and drop a drop of water on it, it will run off. Like the scales and that microstructure interact with the properties of water, and it's a waterproofing. So those scales act like rollers for the wind, and they act like rollers for water. And they also produce the beautiful colors we see, and they help the butterflies fly better. But if you drop a drop of alcohol on it, the structural color goes away. Like if you drop alcohol on here, it's going to get down into that and change the refractive index of everything, and the blue is gone instantly. Here's an idea, just to kind of show you in a cross-section what I can't do with a microscope, what these structures, these microstructures that we're talking about, and the different ways. Like, have you ever seen those blue morpho butterflies? Have you ever seen pictures of them or seen them, hanging in an antique mall for sale, like for hundreds of dollars for a couple of bright blue butterflies? Theirs looks like this, like a Christmas tree, these. Then the next butterfly will maybe have their this area in here filled solid like this, just to produce different colors. Or some of them will have these pores. There'll be pores in there instead of an opening. Here's the 3D photonic crystals, just there. I mean, God is like a master at diversity and variety. Like, it's just incredible. Can you imagine him cooking up all this stuff? Like, I can do it this way. Now, scientists try to figure this out and explain it, and they get carried away, and they get stuck on their thing, just like everybody else does. But some of them here, like this scientific thing, he's trying to say that this lamina thickness is what's producing these colors. Here's a little farther away. But, you know, I think what he's missing, look at the different shapes going on up here. So, you know, you got to take everything with a grain of salt. This is obviously part of it, but there's more. Like some of them have pores like this. Like we'll see a butterfly a little later on. Here's the process of how it happens. Here's this, you know, I was saying about in sync. So constructive interference is when, because of these different layers and the way light interacts with them, they'll bounce out, and timing is just right that they're in sync. That'll is called constructive interference. It amplifies the color, it makes the color brighter. Where here, this destructive interference will interfere, and then there's nothing, no color. So some people say these bright blue butterflies you see, you know, the azures, that's this structural blue, it's this lamina thin film, and it makes a difference with the ridge height. Here's a springtime butterfly, and bam, it opens its wings. I happen to catch it. They are bright blue, and that comes from just the way God designed those wing scales to reflect light. Here's the wing scale, and then I put it under a microscope slide with the glue to glue it to fix the slide. And so you see the structural color is gone, instantly gone. If it was a dye, if it was a pigment, you know, like the green in my shirt or the blue, you can drop alcohol on that, you can put glue on it, it won't change the color very much, right? It just doesn't instantly go away. So here's the blue butterfly in my microscope, and I thought when I was looking at this that I ruined my slide with like fingerprints. And then I happened to be off to the side and see that there are 3 different kinds of scales. So on this particular species of butterfly, he has different kinds of scales with different functions. This is a scent scale. So think about it, the butterflies are flying around each other, and the male is like with that, you know. And I never really did that. It's like, probably won't work. Come on. Here's someone saying these butterflies' wing scales are perforated molded layers. That's what's giving the color. So who knows what it is? Probably all of them, right? Like the lamina, the thin lamina, the ridge height, and the perforated multilayers. It's all doing this to make this blue, rather than just pigment, or pigment at all. And they can tune it by a little tweaking the height or the holes, the periodicity there. So here's one of these blue butterflies laying eggs. Here's this donut-shaped, decorated donut egg. And Lycaenid, or the azure caterpillars and the ones in that family, a lot of times their caterpillars are tended by ants. And there's always a story to something, right? Here the ants are tending it, they're milking it. And here the ant is milking. You can see the little drop of honeydew from the caterpillar. And they're communicating. They got to, get together on this, right? So it's beating out a parley. You know what beating out a parley is? Like, I geeked out on the French and Indian War. So when they get out, to take Fort Duquesne from the French, they beat out a parley. It's a way of saying, we want to communicate here. Well, this ant is beating out a parley, let's say, on this caterpillar. And the caterpillar has a way to talk to the ant, too. Like if it's upset at the ant for getting a little carried away milking it or something, it can, stick these irreversible stink glands out and drive the ant absolutely nuts. And if your finger's there, he will attack it like he means it. So all that to give us these pretty little blue butterflies. What a good God we have. The red-spotted admiral, I could go into stories of how you catch them. I will say they're hard to catch. Waded across a whole bunch of them because I wanted a white one. And you know what happened? And it was gone. I'm gone. Sorry. But I did catch some then. I got good at it. I figured out ways to fool them. Works for hunting too. Sleep. Wake up, there's your buck. Black butterflies, think about that. That is super black. If I put one of those butterflies against my black pants, they're blacker. It's structurally assisted black, like we talked about. The light waves have more time in there because they're bouncing around everywhere to interact with the melanin and get absorbed. And the crowning glory of all the butterflies, at least for me, one of the most amazing things I've ever seen or done was try to catch a juniper hair streak. So I scaled this out. We don't have cedar trees where we live. This is in near Allentown. I scouted it out on Google Earth. There's cedar trees. Stopped at this place where there's trails, and I saw way out up there cedar trees. And then I was there, I didn't find any. I came down here. And it was a cold morning. It was 47 degrees, 57. Butterflies don't fly till 60 degrees, or is it 50? It's 50 degrees, whatever it is in there. 3 degrees difference. I'm like, I don't need my butterfly net. I'm just gonna go get pictures besides I'm in a park, right? So I'm out here, came down here, and beat around this tree, and seen the others, and then I saw these flowers. I'm like, aha. So I was walking through the flowers, and sure enough, there was my juniper hair streak. And that's what butterfly scales do. They also help with thermoregulation, right? You ever seen a solar panel? Look at that. It was basking in the sun, sitting there all tilted over right towards the sun. And it's too cold for it to fly, right? I should have had my butterfly net. So butterflies can regulate, you think about it, their wings have to be thermoregulated. They can't fly when it's too cold. You know how you get wet and then start running around, thin, and things that are thin will shed their heat or heat up to eat a lot easier than a large body. That's why little children, for instance, get cold faster than we do. That's why a mouse freezes to death before an elephant would. Same kind of thing. The scales help in both directions to thermoregulate those wings, even with infrared. Then there's that structural green, and there's gyroid 3D photonic crystals that we talked about that are producing that color. And here you can see it's structural. The green wing with the glue on it, the color is gone. And you look at it in the microscope, and you can see there's all these little iridescent spots, and the green and copper and white right beside it. Whip it in the microscope. Here are these 3D photonic crystals that grow, and here's what they look like. And it has to be that precise, periodicity, spacing apart, and then the layering, the kite in the air so that the light waves interact and they come out of there in sync so that it's nice and green. And they also direct light. I told a friend of mine who is a total computer geek. He has a computer store. He runs the IT department for big businesses. That there's such a thing as photonic band gap crystal fibers. And he's like, what? Oh, you looked at these. This is really interesting. Look how they've invented ways to do just this kind of thing right here in the butterfly wings. Not because of actually, yes. Because of them in butterfly wings, they use them as patterns to learn how to manufacture these photonic structures. The highly periodic structure of air holes in the cladding of the fiber creates a photonic band gap. This means that the light of frequencies within the PBG, photonic band gap, is not allowed to propagate out through the cladding. It's trapped in the core so they can guide light. And the ultimate goal, of course, with this is this cutting edge technology, guys. You're going to have some of these in the future here soon. While photons this is 2015, I don't know that you figured it out yet. While photons may hold an advantage over electrons, the manipulation and control of light presents some difficulties. Yeah, it does. And Blind Chance did not figure it out either, because we can't figure it out without using butterfly wings, right? So, in efforts to achieve all optical integrated circuits have led to a growing interest in the fabrication and use of photonic crystals. Think about your computer. Feel my computer there. It's about melting down because of all those electrons moving through those printed circuits. And someday they're going to have light, guided light with photonic crystals to run your computers, so that there's no heat generated or electric. It's all going to be photons running your computers. That has to be one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. Not the most amazing thing I've ever seen, but there you go. Guiding light from our great and good God, and giving us the beautiful butterfly colors and those patterns. There's the green right beside a different color, and he can program a butterfly to do that. So they can signal to each other, so they can show off their beautiful colors and God's creativity. Let's remember, when we see beautiful butterflies and other beautiful things, that we should glorify our great and good God. And most of all, remember, He is the light of the world. And then we know how to understand the world around us.
I find it interesting today's technology, or just the world in general, is patterning a lot of stuff after nature. I think it's pretty awesome. It's a testament of how awesome God really is. Any questions for Dana?
What stirred your interest in this kind of thing? Was there something that happened when you were in school or
Yes, it was. 4th grade, I had an epic science teacher. 3 years ago, I told you that. And then my aunt brought me this book at a family reunion. It was a history of my school, Penn View Christian School in Telford, PA. And looking through it, there's a picture of me and a whole bunch of all the school kids all gathered around, microscopes and dissecting stuff and little vials full of a science experiment. It was a visiting scientist. One day, little banana things in there and fruit flies that he had painted little different. He was breeding some kind of, I don't know, he was doing some kind of science experiment, and I saw science happening there, like real science. I mean, science in a book is like, what's that? And so, that's when I kind of got hooked on it. And then I learned how to research by wanting to know how to make arrowheads. Like, Pete Stoltzfus had a bucket of arrowheads in the shed. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I should learn how to hunt arrowheads. And then, like, how did they make them? Like, where did they get the flint? So I started going with, you know. In those days, the internet was in the library, and you didn't use Google. There was no Google, and so you hunted through the dissertations in the guts of the library, you know, or yeah. That's where I learned to research, and then I found a book called, this was many years ago, called The Tracks and Signs of Insects by Charlie Eisman, and he opened my eyes with that book to the stories of how everything has a story, and yeah.
Another question?
Yeah, Barb.
Okay, when you catch a butterfly, what is the process?
Don't move a muscle.
The hard part. So you need a spreading board. I mean, afterwards, is that what you're saying, to make them look like this? So you need a spreading board and a bunch of pins, and you stick a pin through them, the right spot. You squeeze them so it breaks the muscles and the structure around their wings. Stick a pin right through them and stick them down in there. And then you have to put 2 pins there by their abdomen so they don't twist. And then you pin their antenna so they don't droop. And then you carefully pull one wing up. And this is the way I do it. I lay a little strip of paper over it, and I put a pin up there, and then I slide this wing up and put a pin at the bottom. So you put these little strips of paper all along there to hold this side and then this side, and then you let them dry for a while. It's tedious. Like, wait till you try it, something like that. It's not for old grandpas to do very easily.
Have you and Tim Stoltzfus got together anytime?
Oh, yeah. I guess you know him.
Any other questions? I gotta say, Dave, Dana is fascinated and has time for things that the average human just blasts past.
That's right.
You know, being at camp with Dana and just taking some time.
I will say it for myself, take so much for granted.
Yeah.
Miss a lot of things.
Dana, would you have time to give us a 5-minute rundown of the woolly mammoth and what you know of the woolly mammoth?
Like the one I dug up?
Yes.
The mastodon?
Yes.
Like what? Like what about it?
Just tell us, who has dug up a woolly mammoth?
A what?
A woolly mammoth.
When you've seen one?
No, dug one up.
Like an elephant thing?
Yes, like Ice Age, woolly mammoth.
Sure, I'll see if I can.
Yeah.
See if I can cook up a story.
Where were you? You need to start with where were you?
I was at Penn State Earth and Mineral Sciences Museum, and on the wall were mastodon tusks. A mastodon is like a woolly mammoth, except they were like, a woolly mammoth is like a Holstein, a mastodon is like a Angus. Built, heavy, 2 or 3 times as heavy as an elephant, just stocky. Anyway, the tusks are hanging there, and I knew the museum curator, and I said, "Where's the rest of it?" He's like, "They never dug it up." I said, "Well, let's." So he did. So he researched in the bowels of, the museum there, found 2 glass lantern slides and maybe some kind of report about in the 30s that these guys were digging and hit the tusks in the teeth. And there was a picture, glass lantern slide of the guy kneeling in his yard with those tusks and a couple of mastodon teeth. And a picture of the guy in the woods kneeling on a board. I'm like, I need a copy of that. I was a logger at the time, right? So we went down to Saltillo, which is just 20 miles north of SMBI or so. And we asked local people, you know where the mastodon was dug up? The older folks. No, it was over here. Where was the mastodon dug up? It was over here. So we were kind of guessing where this was at, and I had that glass lantern slide copy, and I'm walking along in the woods, and hey, that tree is that one right there. It's just 60 years younger in the picture. And that one, it's that one. So the guy was right here. So I stuck a shovel in and hit the bone right away. So I took it up to the guys, like archaeologists, geologists, whatever. They were earth and mineral sciences guys. Oh, no, that's not bone, that's bog iron crunch. Oh, it is. So we dug down right there, and right there it was. The shoulder blades, the rib cage, the all in the radius, none of the rest of those bones. And in the muck, it was in muck about this deep, like, that kind of stuff. It stinks to the sky. And at the bottom of that muck was gravel, and the bones were sitting on gravel. And then all that muck, I talked to a guy from the University of Michigan, because he digs up lots of mastodons, and he's like, watch for the manure. So I did, and it was everywhere. So I have a little vial. I should have got boxes of it. Because, my son is a foodie, and he's like, Wesley, he's like, if someone asks me what is the strangest thing I ever ate, I want to say mastodon manure. But I'm going to have a little bit of it, I'm not giving it up. Those little pieces look like the hay in horse manure. Have you ever seen it? Like little shredded, it's exactly like it. It's like I can lay it beside a horse manure and you wouldn't tell the difference, except it looks like wood instead of hay.
So how do you know it's not a horse manure?
Well, because it's white spruce, like up here. Like see down in southern Pennsylvania around SMBI, it used to look like the Northland because the climate changed. And we weren't around to do it, by the way.
Any other questions?
Does manure decompose?
So when things are waterlogged and cool, they don't rot. There was wood down in there with beaver teeth marks on. I have it in my fossil case. There were leaves down there in the stones. Willow leaves are still green. Like there's no oxygen in that muck, and it just didn't rot.
What about the meat? Was there any meat there?
There wasn't. So I still don't know how the bones got there. Now the dude that told me about the mastodon manure said look for arrowheads, look for cut marks. He said almost all the mastodons he dug were put there in the bog by the Paleo Indians to keep them from spoiling and flavor them maybe. And maybe that's why there was only the roast there, like the ulna and radius. Like where was the femur?
So that was one spectrum. He's looking for cannonballs right now too. True story.
Yes.
You want to tell us about that real quick? Then you gotta go. This guy is like vast.
Cannon.
Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah. I mean, maybe not. If you guys wanna go, you can go.
Sure. SMBI, I grew up there, right, down the road a mile. Sidling Hill is up there. From SMBI, you can see a gap in the mountain where 30 goes through, and a gap in the mountain where the turnpike goes through.
Right.
Where the turnpike goes through was the Forbes Road. When I went to school, I thought Forbes Road was a school district. I just a few years ago figured out, learned that Forbes Road was a French and Indian War road built in 1758. And so researching and figuring out where to find this stuff, and if the road is still there, yes, it's still there. And lots of artifacts.
Wow.
The commander, Bouquet, wrote to the general that the road is strewn with wagons, and I see treasure. And I'm a hopeless hunter, and I'm gonna find that wagon load of cannonballs that the axle broke, and those cannonballs rolled down the mountain, and they're still there for me to find. And then I can sell them on eBay and make a fortune.